What's up, Switch? My name is Jeremy McCarter, and I am so happy you are here. All right, first things first, I want to see what some of your favorite things are. So here we go. Quick trivia, yell out your answers. On the count of three, I want you to yell out your favorite song right now. 1, 2, 3, yell it out. All right, good. Let's try this again. On the count of three, I want you to yell out the name of your favorite restaurant. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. You guys are getting this. All right, one more. On the count of three, I want you to yell out your favorite movie of all time. 1, 2, 3. Great. Okay, so based on your answers, there's some of you who probably need to stop by the school counselor office tomorrow, but here's what I just learned. We all have favorites. There's things that we would rate high, there's things we would rate low. And if that's the case, that means there's a chance that there are things that are overrated. So I completely experienced this several months ago. Some friends at the office, some friends online, everybody was bragging about this movie. And the word on the street was this movie was the best movie that had ever been produced. So I decided I'm not gonna just take my wife to this movie when it hits the dollar theater or take her to a matinee. I was going to make this big. I was gonna make this right. The bigger the date, the better the chances after the date. And so I thought I'm gonna swing for the fence. And so I went and got the tickets to the movie with the big recliners. The ones where you can like lay back, lay down, hold hands, cuddle, all those different things. But as the movie started, a little bit slowly, and continued to go slow and slow until the end when it ended, and it was one of the worst movies I'd ever seen. I remember thinking to myself, this is overhyped. This is overrated. Now, some of you've experienced the same thing. Maybe it was something you bought, maybe it was like clothes, maybe it was shoes, or maybe it was something like a cell phone. And you thought whatever it was you bought was gonna bring you happiness, but it didn't. Or maybe it was a relationship you just had to be in. You had to have that boyfriend, you had to have that girlfriend, and so you fought to get in that relationship. Then when you got into it, you realized, okay, this isn't what I expected it to be. Or maybe it was a class or a band or a team, and you had to be on that team, but once you got on that team, you quickly realized this isn't so great. Now, for some of these things, it's okay that it's overrated, but what happens when the thing that's overrated is something we care about or something we believe in? What happens when the thing that is overrated is connected to God? Whether we admit it or not, there are certain things when it comes to our relationship with Christ that can be overrated. The first one would be this: trying to be like Jesus is overrated. Now, I'll repeat that because you may have misunderstood me. Trying to be like Jesus is overrated. Now, I know there's some of you and you are trying to be like Christ and you think that I am wrong, you think that I'm stupid, you think that I should be fired for this. But here's what I know, here's what I've experienced, and here's what I bet is true for some of you. You are trying to be like Jesus, but chances are high it's not working. Newsflash, it takes more than trying.
Myra Desanayaka was behind the counter when he noticed his co-worker returned to the store after a run to the bank. The men in this SUV were watching too because they went straight for the man in the bank bag as soon as he got out of his car.
Just the reaction, you see someone get beat up, you just go out.
Myra ran outside, and before the alleged robbers even saw him,
the first guy I saw, I just kicked him in the face, then I punched the other guy.
Myra!
Moves Myra learned in cage matches. He's trained in mixed martial arts for more than a decade and was named the MMA national champion for 5 consecutive years in his native country of Sri Lanka.
We learn like how to punch, how to kick, and how to move, so all that stuff you can use in the streets.
Or in this case, the parking lot. In seconds, the bad guys begin their retreat, the getaway car getting further away.
they were waiting for them, but when they were running back, I caught one guy with a hook, so he fell down. So they just left it.
Police arrested that man identified as 33-year-old Odell Mathis. His partner and the driver got away, but customers of the fuel depot still call this
a feel-good story.
A feel-good story, unless you're this guy.
Amy Davis, KPRC, Local 2.
Now, that guy did not try to stop the bad guys. He was trained to stop the bad guys. Now, if that would have been me, the video you would have seen would have been a YouTube video about this guy in the hospital who brought a knife to a gunfight, because I would have got my butt whooped. Actually, I wouldn't have, because I would have just locked the door and got onto the gas station microphone. Hey, let that guy go. Okay, I'm calling the police now. And then I would have locked myself in the girls' bathroom. But that's a different story. He was trained. I would have tried. There's a difference between trying and training. Think about it. There's a difference between trying to get your dog to stop peeing on the carpet or training your dog to stop peeing on the carpet. There's a difference between trying to be an opera singer or training to be an opera singer. Look at a person who's trying to be a bodybuilder and a person who trains to be a bodybuilder. There's a big difference between trying and training. This year, some of our staff were given Fitbits. Now, these Fitbits, they measure how many steps you take, they measure how well you sleep, your calorie intake, all kinds of different things. Now, I thought, would it be great if we could create a Fitbit group so that we could encourage and motivate one another? Not really. I had ran 5 miles and I wanted everybody to know how far I had run, and so I could be on top of the leaderboard. After a couple minutes, my wife had joined and she'd only taken 14 steps, so I was completely destroying her, and I was feeling really, really good about myself. It wasn't until the next day when I realized I was in 48th place that I realized, okay, I might just be a little bit overrated. There is a difference between trying to be like Jesus and training to be like Jesus. Just like there's a difference between trying to run a marathon and training to run a marathon. We could all go out and try, but chances are we won't make it. But if we train, we'll have a better chance of completing the marathon. And I think that's why Paul, when he's talking to Timothy, he doesn't say, hey, go try to be like Jesus. Instead, he says, train to be godly. For me, I can easily see those who, like me, are just trying and those who are training. And like many of you, I have tried to be like Jesus. I've had the best intentions. I want to do the right thing. I want to read my Bible more. I want to pray more. I want to fast more. I want to love others more. I want to get along with my parents better. But the more I try, the more I seem to miss it. You see, trying is something I do. It's an event. But training is a process. It's something you do over and over. Paul understood the difference between trying and training so much that he wrote these words to the people in Corinth. He says, don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. I'm not shadow boxing. And like what he says here, I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. You see, there's a difference between trying to be like Jesus and training to be like Jesus. Olympic athletes don't try, they train. Navy SEALs, they don't try, they train. And even like people like the Beatles, they didn't try to be a good band. They trained, they practiced, they played all the time. Why? There is a difference between trying and training. Paul put the pieces together. If I try, I may not make it. If I try, I may not compete. If I try, I may be disqualified. So Paul made a decision that he was not going to try to be like Jesus. Instead, he was going to train. And I wonder, in what area of your life are you trying that you need to stop trying and instead you need to start training? Is it in your relationship with your parents and how you treat them? Is it in the friends that you choose? Or maybe it's the choices that you're making. Where is the area where you need to quit trying to be like Jesus and instead start training to be like Jesus? And this reminds me of a story that I heard Joe Montana, the former quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, tell about Jerry Rice. He said that whenever Jerry Rice would catch a pass in practice, that he wouldn't just turn around and come back to the line of scrimmage. He would catch the ball and he would run it all the way to the end zone, even if it was the other end of the field. And soon this rubbed off on other wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks. Everybody got in the habit of when they caught the ball, they would run and they would score a touchdown. That is how they practiced. And what's interesting is that they practiced that way and it converted into game time. They became the team that scored the most touchdowns. I love how Joe Montana put it. He said it this way: if you practice or if you train to be great and you miss it, you're still really, really good. He says if you train or practice to be really good and you miss it, you're okay. He says, but if you train and practice just to be okay and you miss it, then you've missed it. There's a difference between trying to be like Jesus and training to be like Jesus. And you have to figure out which one is overrated.